Welcome back. Pastor Rich here with part 5, the conclusion of Genesis, the overview of the Bible. Okay, in part 4, we left off where Joseph was thrown into prison falsely. Okay, now remember, I must remind you that this is a overview. It's not getting into detail of the entire message of Genesis. Now, these chapters from 41 to 50, I'm going to be talking about the dream of Pharaoh. Now, the dream was about 7 skinny cows and 7 fat cows. Now, this is important to understand, that the way that God speaks to people when he chooses to use dreams, it is very symbolic. For example, the 7 cows refers to 7 years. Now, the 7 fat cows represented 7 bountiful years of great harvest. And the 7 skinny cows represented 7 years of famine, hardship, no food. So, as a result of this and Joseph's gift and ability from God to interpret the dreams, he shared this with Pharaoh. And remember, he was in prison, and it was the other guys who were thrown into prison that Joseph interpreted their dreams, and one of them was released and got back to the Pharaoh. And then after Pharaoh's dream, they remembered Joseph, but it was 2 years that had passed. Interesting. But anyway, so finally, Pharaoh chose to release Joseph. And remember, in the past episodes that I spoke of, where Joseph had this dream that his family would eventually bow down to him, the youngest, or the younger brother. He was not the youngest. Benjamin was after him. But anyway, so the point came where his family had to go to Egypt to seek food. Now, at this point, it had been about 13 years from the time that Joseph was 17 when his brothers sold him into slavery. So, there's something very, very powerful and important that you will hear at the end of this message. So, the brothers went to Egypt and sought food, and then Joseph allowed them to purchase the food. However, he plotted and schemed a little bit here because he recognized his brothers, but they did not recognize him, because at this point Joseph was now speaking in the native language of the Egyptians, and I think their language was Hebrew. So, but Joseph spoke both. So while the brothers were speaking in their language, Joseph understood. But when Joseph spoke to the other Egyptians, they did not understand Joseph. So he played the part to not let them know that he recognized them. And he had a younger brother, Benjamin. So he longed to see him. So he asked them to prove that they weren't spies, before he sold them anything, to bring Benjamin back there. So remember, I'm just summarizing a lot of this stuff for you. So he kept Benjamin, and then to put a little stress on them, and they were pleading that it would break their father's heart because he had lost Joseph, and that nearly crushed him. So to lose his last son would definitely push him over the edge. So as they pleaded, that was when Joseph finally chose to reveal himself to them, that he was the brother that they had abandoned. So, as Joseph shared that with them, they thought, okay, well, he was probably going to have them beheaded or something, because obviously you'd be so, angry for them to do something like that to you. But listen to this. Now, this is in chapter 50 here. I'm flipping some pages here. Now, very, very powerful. Now, listen to this. Joseph said to them, "Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid, for I am in the place of God." Now, remember, they thought Joseph was going to throw them into prison. But Joseph is telling them that I'm in this place because God allowed it to happen. So, although I'm giving you an overview of the book of Genesis, I want to extract this message because of its relevance. People think that, why God allow bad things to happen? Now, get this clear and out of your mind, to not make the mistake of thinking that God is the one who brings bad things. No, it is not. Also, look at the book of Job. Okay? Now, God allows them. And what God does, as he allows these trials into your life, he uses it as a purification, and the fact that no one wants to seek God on their own, but whenever even a non-believer will cry out to God in time of distress or worry, or when they realize that it is beyond their power to do anything about it. Now, what Joseph said to them is that what you thought was something bad, you say, his words now, "But as for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good in order to bring it about as it is this day to save many people alive. Now, therefore, do not be afraid. I will provide for you and your little ones." And he comforted them and spoke kindly to them. So Joseph is explaining to them that God allowed what? Them to throw him into the pit and then to sell Joseph into slavery, because God knew what would happen 13 years later, and that Joseph would be chosen to put in that position to save a great many people. So you see, Joseph saved many people because of the trials that he went through. So that's why it's very important also when the scripture says, be thankful for everything. Be thankful in all things. Now, it does not say be thankful that a loved one got hurt or passed away, or the difficulties that you're going through. That, not to thank God for bad things, but to thank God for the opportunity that you're going through, and then through his will and his understanding, he will bring you through it better than what it was that you were going through. Remember also the 23rd Psalms? Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil because you're with me. So God is there. He didn't take you out of the valley. He was with you through the valley and guided you out of it. Because sometimes it's just plain and simple. It's beyond our understanding. And I can use this analogy. You can tell a 3 or 5-year-old child about certain things and to do certain things, and you may not feel it necessary to explain to them why you are telling them to do a certain thing. However, you, with your knowledge and experience, know the benefit of what will come of it. Remember, no shiny diamond that you can ever look at starts out that way. To the untrained eye, a diamond in the rough look like a piece of junk, just, worthless piece of rock that just have some kind of a translucent type of look to it. It has to be polished. Even gold needs to be refined. Now, that is how God chooses to do these things, to purify us. And it's through the trials that help to bring us closer to God. And I think I want to add this too. I'll do a separate sermon on this, but it's about fasting. That it has a spiritual benefit to it, not just the physical part of refraining from food that which cleanses and purifies the body. There's a spiritual cleansing involved as well. I don't want to go too far with that because, again, this is the conclusion of the overview of the Bible from Genesis chapter 41 to 50. And the next episode, and again, it's hard to name these things properly. Remember, I'm new to this, and it's not just me putting the sound effects and these things together to make it a little interesting and not bore you, because the scriptures can be boring to many people because of the message and its in-depth information. Okay, so this is going to end episode 1. I'm going to call episode 2 Exodus, and then I'll break it up into different parts. So join me for episode 2, the beginning of Exodus, and thank you for listening the overview of the Bible, episode 1, the book of Genesis. Once again, thank you for listening. I am Pastor Rich, and I will see you soon.